Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the webinar about the Good Life Abroad. It's a general informational session about the Good Life Abroad, and just a few bits of housekeeping before we begin. This is being recorded, and if you've registered for this webinar, you will be sent a recording tomorrow, so check your email. We're going to be having a conversation here for about 45 minutes, and then we're going to open it up to Q&A. To submit your questions, do not type in the chat, do not raise your hand. Use the Q&A icon at the bottom of the Zoom toolbar. It says Q&A. You might have to click into a little three-dot menu to get there, but you can see the Q&A icon and you can type your questions there. At the end of our conversation, we'll dive into those questions and we'll answer as many as we have time for while respecting our time limits. So without further ado, start with some introductions. I'm here with one of our alumni, our special guest, Barb Demers. Barb, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Andrew said I'm Barb Demers. I was in the group that went to Lisbon from mid-May to mid-June. I'm retired from the American Red Cross for about 8 years, I guess now, and love to travel and really had a great time going with Good Life Abroad to Lisbon.
Thank you very much, Barb. Appreciate it. And for those who don't know, I'm Andrew Motuela. I'm the founder and CEO of the Good Life Abroad. And here we go. So let's just start with why did we start the Good Life Abroad? And these are a lot of the feedback that I've heard during my 30 years working in the travel industry. The tours are great, the cruises are fine, but at some point I just don't want to be getting on the bus, off the bus, or being stuck with people all day long. And also what I'm hearing a lot of too is people wanting to go deeper into a place. Barbara, you mentioned that you had actually been to Lisbon before you went to the Good Life Abroad. Can you tell us about that? And why did you go back to a city that you had already been to?
My wife and I went to Lisbon for a few days as we were getting ready to take a cruise to Barcelona. We really loved it. We did a walking tour. Our guide explained that because Portuguese is such a difficult language, most everybody speaks English, which is certainly an advantage. We loved the little bit of it that we saw. And when we had the opportunity to spend a month somewhere, we always thought we'd like to go back to Lisbon. And so that's what we chose to do first.
Great, thank you. Um, and so, yeah, when I was first developing the idea for the Good Life Abroad, I actually started by just posting something on Facebook, and I said, "Has anyone else wanted to go live abroad for a period of time, maybe in Europe or somewhere else, but hasn't done it?" And then all these people have commented, and so I sent them a survey, and I said, "Why didn't you do it? You want to do this, but why didn't you do it?" And kind of saw a lot of the concerns people had. It's a daunting idea, and there's a lot of barriers to overcome. And so just learning from that, we decided, I did some experimentation and eventually came up with the idea that community is sort of the secret sauce that makes this really doable. And it makes you feel you can be living abroad independently, but still have some people around you. You can have the support of a local person, like what we call a community manager. And so suddenly it's not so daunting to go live in another place and you actually have a lot of fun and it's not lonely. Um, and so that was sort of the genesis of the Good Life Abroad. So how does it work? Okay, let me just kind of give a quick overview of just the features, like how does the program function in any one of our cities, not just Lisbon. So you sign up on our website and basically you get it's a cohort-based experience. So people all come and arrive on the same day, and these people all have apartments that are in either the same building in some cases, but more likely in the same general neighborhood. And these are they're not luxury by any means, but they're not budget accommodations either. We try to find accommodations that are yeah, nice, and we'll talk more about the apartments in general. They're clean, modern, renovated. They're not ancient, decrepit, and they're not like people's Airbnbs. We're not working like that. And I'll show you some photos in a bit. But then you have this community of fellow travelers who are living nearby. That's kind of nice. And then we have a local community manager who's a person on the ground who works for us, who is there to organize activities and events for the community, but also is there to serve as a support or a local friend to kind of guide you and connect you to different activities that are happening. And then the final layer of our safety net is that we provide travel medical insurance, and we have access to some English-speaking doctors in each country. And then we have some optional programming, including wellness programming or other optional things that people can do as well. But that's the kind of quick overview of how the program is laid out. Now we're going to dive into each aspect of the program in a little more depth and then hear from Barb about what that looked like for her in Lisbon. Um, Before we get there, just a quick overview of all the cities where we offer this program. As you can see, there's 14 places, and we have smaller cities like um, Cagliari, Sardinia, or Split, but then you have bigger cities like London and Barcelona and whatnot, and everything in between. Lisbon's a nice in between. I think it's a capital city, but it's not so giant, but it's also not tiny, so it has everything a city would have. All right, so we were talking about the apartments. So in general, people ask me like, where are these apartments? What are they? And what we try to do is actually not be in the tourist area. Most European cities have like this historic center with like the cobblestone streets, and all the tourists get off the cruise ship and they walk around there, and you know that's fine, it's cool, but we don't want to live there. We want to actually live where people from that city actually live. So in the case of Lisbon, I think we were like 20 minutes walk away from sort of the touristy area. I don't know exactly where your apartment was, Barb, but we try to be like walking. You can walk to that stuff, but you can also kind of go off and be more in the local neighborhoods. Barb, can you speak a little bit about your apartment and
Yeah, so our apartment was great. We had a one-bedroom apartment. It was pristine. We we came in Sunday night and looked around and thought, we are the first people to ever stay here. They must have just renovated it because there just wasn't a mark anywhere. It was clean as could be. And talked to Jen, I think the next day, and said, "Oh, we're so happy to be in this brand new apartment." She said, "It's not new. We've been using it." So it was really well cared for. It was sparkling clean. In the kitchen, there were six plates and six smaller plates and flatware for six and pots and pans and six wine glasses and six water glasses. Just it wasn't like I've heard about B&Bs that you go in and find chipped coffee mugs and that kind of stuff. It was in really great shape, very modern. Two blocks from, a very short 2 blocks from the metro, which was perfect. Half a block probably to the grocery store, which was also perfect. What am I missing here? Um,
and how would you say like in terms of like proximity to tourist sites? How far or close?
so Lisbon is a city of hills, and where we stayed was up the hill, or a part of the hill. The Andrew the Seventh Park also is a long park that's gorgeous that goes up the hill, and we were right next to it. Um, and what we found was we would walk down. It was very easy walking to get all the way down into the to main square, the Commerce Square, or off into the side areas. And then, sometimes we walk part way back. I think we once walked all the way back, and mostly other than that, we just hop on the metro, which was very cheap, and just ride up to our station that was close to our apartment.
Great. And as Barb mentioned, so all of the apartments are fully furnished. They have a kitchen or kitchenette that's equipped with pots, pans, crockery, things that you need to live. And then you can see in one of these photos, this is just a random sample of apartments around the world that we use around Europe. Most of them have the capsule coffee makers. Some places might have something else, but for the most part, they all have a microwave, a dishwasher. Um, the one thing I will mention is because this is Europe and it is not the United States. So there's a few major differences to be aware of. First, let's just start with size. If you're coming from a, 2,000 square foot, 3,000 square foot house in the suburbs, this is going to feel much smaller to begin with. Secondly, an important thing to remember if you're coming from maybe a gated like 55 plus community, or if you lived in the suburbs, you are living in a city center, and that means everything that comes with living in a city center. um, there's garbage trucks that come at night to pick up the trash. These are old, I mean, really old cities. This was before the United States it was even founded as a country. And so, things happen right in front of you. People come out of dinner, they eat much later than they do in the US. So people are coming out of restaurants at 10 o'clock at night. There's, life on the streets. There's all these things. So there's some, in my mind, I think it's important to just note that it might take some getting used to. I don't. I live in a city, but I also live in a very quiet area. So when I go, I take earplugs because I'm a sensitive sleeper. But I will say that I believe all the windows and most of the apartments are double pane glass, so it does keep the noise out to some degree. But again, if you're a very sensitive sleeper, um, Barb, what are some other things that people should be aware of?
One other thing that kind of drives me crazy, but it is what it is living in Europe. There, it's unusual to have a clothes dryer. Some of the apartments had combination washer dryers, which pretty much everyone says really don't dry your clothes. It'll run for 3 hours and everything comes out damp anyway. So there are drying racks. Certainly, Lisbon is a very sunny and dry city, and I've used them in other cities before. The only thing is they come out of the washing machine wrinkled, and your dryer kind of tightens things, brings back into shape some things. So after a month there, your clothes are kind of hanging loose. You think, oh gosh, am I losing weight? And it's no, it's just you don't have a clothes dryer. But that's part of living in Europe.
Yeah, that's a great point, Barb. And I can speak to the other cities besides Lisbon. Almost none of our cities have dryers in the apartments. They have washers in almost all cases, but not dryers. And then in the very rare cases, there is a washer dryer combo. As you said, Barb, it's almost not. It's just better to do it. That said, if you're just not feeling it, like this is my weak point here. I just don't like to do laundry when I'm traveling, and so you can also just walk a few blocks away to a laundromat, and they drop it off, and then you can pick it up the next day, and it's all washed and dried and folded, and I like to do it that way. So there are other options for people who are maybe a little intimidated by the idea of using the drying rack for everything.
And they
Uh,
do have irons and ironing boards too. It's really easy to
yeah,
iron out the wrinkles, but it's just when you're used to a dryer, you miss it.
Barb, let me ask you, did you cook a lot in your apartment?
We do not cook when we're on vacation, so no.
Yeah.
Certainly, we had others in our cohort that cooked quite a bit, actually,
Okay.
but we didn't.
Yeah, I hear from a lot of people, oh, we plan on cooking, but then we got there and well, I think what I see most of the time is people might have some breakfast fixings in their apartment, for that, but they still like to go out for coffee at the cafe, and then
Yeah.
go out for like a nice lunch. And maybe at night, maybe if there's leftovers from lunch, or maybe have a salad or make something light.
Cheese and crackers.
Yeah,
Yep.
cheese and crackers.
That
But
was a big one.
but people are often like, if I'm in this place, I want to just, try the local delicacies. But
Yeah.
I think it's also really fun to go to the local market, buy ingredients, and then cook something, maybe something you learned to cook while you're there. So that's a quick overview of the apartments and the locations. People ask me, can we bring guests? And so, yes, you absolutely can have guests. We do ask that the guests just not come to the community activities that are scheduled because so many people have guests coming that it kind of becomes a little bit like, well, are you part of the community? Are you just here for a few days? Are you here for a week? So we just say, you can come, they can stay in your apartment, you can do whatever you want with them, but for the integrity of the community to hold off on bringing them to that. And we do ask to register them, just like a guest at any hotel would have registered with the local authorities because we want to be in compliance. Um, so community activities and events. People ask me like, I'm there for a month. What am I doing? So we have in all of the cities, we have a welcome reception and we have a farewell party at the beginning and end. And then every Tuesday we do something called Tuesday Lunch Club, um, which I'll tell you a little bit more in a second. And then on Thursdays we do the happy hours. And then on Wednesdays, we do different cultural activities, and they may be walking tours or cooking classes or some kind of art workshop. But that's the general structure of all of our cities. They all more or less follow this structure, and it varies from city to city in terms of the type of cultural activities. But you might be like, okay, this lunch thing, what is that? But there's a little more to the lunch club and to happy hours and meets the eye. They're very intentionally chosen by our community managers, and for a few different reasons. One is it's a way to expose you to new foods that you might not try. I believe in Lisbon, Jennifer. The first one orders a bunch of small plates of different things, and you actually are learning about the culture through its food and by trying these different things. And then it's also helpful because then when you're off on your own, you look at the menu and you're like, I don't know what you're like, now I know what that thing is. I saw the word, but I didn't really know. But now I know I like that, and I'm gonna go order that again. So that's one part. And then sometimes we choose the restaurants in places that you might not just stumble upon on your own. Sometimes it's in a nearby town or a different neighborhood we want to expose you to. So it's very intentional. In addition to that, as you see, we do not have any programming on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. So what happens is people are going off and doing their independent exploration, and Tuesdays you come back, it's like get to see your friends again and hear like, what have you been up to? And people come back with different stories of things they've discovered, and it's a time of sharing and fun. And these lunches are usually quite leisurely, and there's wine flowing, and even if you don't drink, there's other options as well. And it's a nice European paced lunch. Um, and so that's really a nice thing. And then happy hour is similarly intentionally chosen to expose you to different parts of the city. In some cases, it's simply a happy hour. In some cases, it's learning about perhaps the local wines and actually doing a tasting. Or in Spain, vermouth is a big thing, and they actually do like a vermouth class where you learn to make vermouth, and then you get to like drink it, whatever you made. Um, so, Barb, tell us a little bit about some of the activities that you really enjoyed in Lisbon.
Well, certainly all of the lunches and all of the happy hours. One of our happy hour was a sunset cruise, which was fun. Another one was a wine tasting. But the Wednesday activities are also very fun. We had a couple of really good walking tours in some of the old neighborhoods, 2 days of that. One day we had a cooking class where we went to a culinary school and they walked us to a local market where we were able to go around and see all of the seafood and all of the meat and the veggies and whatever. And the chefs bought it as we were there touring it with them. And then we brought it all back to the cooking school and we all cooked. Um, I helped make gazpacho. Bea helped make a fried mackerel, all kinds of different food and a lot of food. And then when it was all over, we sat and ate it, which was great. Another thing, Lisbon's famous for its tiles. The tile work on the buildings and in the buildings is just gorgeous. There's a wonderful tile museum there. And one of our Wednesday activities was tile painting. It's the last one that we did, where we were given patterns and we each get our own tile and we could paint it.
I
And then
think
they
this is
kept them
it.
in.
The photo is the tile workshop here in the upper right-hand corner. I don't know if that was your group,
Yes,
but
it is. Yeah.
yeah,
Not my group, but that's exactly what we're doing. And the one on the bottom left actually is probably, no, it's not the culinary school. I take that back. Anyway, yeah, so they fire them for us after that last Wednesday. And when we have our farewell party, Jen brought them all for us so that we were able to bring our tiles home. So that was really fun.
that's cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see from the photos just sort of an assortment of like a lunch club. That cooking class is actually in Split, Croatia. I believe in the top center is they did a flamenco dancing workshop in Spain, and they actually like some of them dressed up in costume like the local things. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, a lot of good stuff, but it's much more than just the activities that we schedule. Um, this is fundamentally a community experience, is how it's an independent experience with community. And what does that mean? So let me just dive a little bit into community and I'll then connect the dots with activities and fun stuff. So as I mentioned before, it's cohort based. And before you even arrive in country, we do about a month before we do a Zoom call where you get everyone who's in that group in your cohort comes down, the community manager is on, and you can at least put a name and a face together, and do a little bit of pre-departure talk, and then everyone arrives in country on the same day. And you're tired, you've flown most of the time overnight, and you just go to your apartment and settle in. And a lot of people just go to sleep or rest. The next day, we do that group orientation. We do that at 10 in the morning, so you have time to sleep in. And as Barb mentioned, it's we actually show you how to take public transportation, right? We show you like where to get the groceries, where the house, get housewares. It's just sort of an orientation to the city, and also the goal is to really empower you to live like a local, to you to be able to live there for a month. Um, and then we break. It's not like overbearing, and it's not you're not stuck with the group all day. We break, people maybe take a nap or whatever, and then that night we come back for the welcome party. And I think in Lisbon it's like on a rooftop bar with a great view of the
Mhm.
city. And we do the rooftop bars in a few places. So that's the community aspect. Like it's like group, the cohort nature. But then what we do is we use WhatsApp, which is, if you don't know, is a text messaging app. In Europe, that's what they use. They don't just use like normal text on your phone, like we might use iMessage or something like that. Everyone uses WhatsApp, and so we've adopted that as well. And WhatsApp has this great feature called communities. And if you click communities, you can see an example screenshot from Florence, Italy. um, there's a channel for announcements, and that's where our community manager sends messages to the group. Hey, we're meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. Here's the link to Google Maps, and meet you there. Um, that's great. But we also have these other groups, and these are groups that are anyone can create, anyone in the community can create. And here's some examples of, well, member to member was just sort of everyone talking to everyone. But then we had one for like solo travelers, because about a third of our group are solo travelers and they wanted to be able to connect. And we had some people into fitness. Hey, who wants to go for a run or who wants to go to yoga with me? So there was like some fitness groups that appear. Someone started a book club. I've seen everything from, hey, who wants to go on a weekend getaway to the nearby town with me, or let's throw a potluck party. So that WhatsApp is where the community really kind of connects when they're not together in person. And what happens is uh, the community takes on a life of its own, and it's becomes much more than just the scheduled activities. Um, Barb, why don't you just kind of talk about like what did that look like in your program?
It's kind of funny because as I had logged into the webinar, I was waiting for it to start. I had several messages come in on WhatsApp from people in my community that are still keeping up. We still kind of talk to each other. I also have Facebook friends with each other. But yeah, we had another group, I think, for recommendations for restaurants and another one for travel where we could all just exchange good ideas, suggestions, or maybe don't try this. Yeah, so WhatsApp works wonderfully
And
and
did
continues.
and what kind of other groups did they create, or were people just meeting up randomly for like, let's go out for dinner, or what did that look like?
I found with us, we didn't do so much of that on WhatsApp. I remember one night B and I were walking to a restaurant and rang into Mark and Lynn, who's another couple in our group. And where are you going? Oh, we're going the same place. Let's go together. Or,
Yeah.
after a Fado concert, I think six of us or eight of us all walked kind of down the hill and found a local restaurant and had dinner there together. After a walking tour, we went to lunch with another couple. So certainly meeting up, but not so much through WhatsApp on the
Okay.
group.
Yeah, cool. So a lot of people ask me like, so who's in this community exactly? Uh, well, let's start. On average, the average group size about 15, 16 people. On the low end, it could be like 10. On the higher end, it could be in the low 20s. But on average, it balances out to 16. It varies from cohort to cohort. The average age, 67 and a half. But again, average doesn't mean it's like everyone's at, it's there's a curve. And so we have some people who are older and some that are younger. I would say that in general, the thing that they all have in common is that they're well traveled and they love travel and they're able-bodied. I mean, because this is not a tour. We're not picking you up in a bus and carrying you places, and this is an independent experience. So I think maybe then would add maybe that they're independent minded, but appreciate the idea of having community around them, and they love cultural immersion, and that's why they're doing something that literally immerses them for a month in one place, versus doing something where they're jumping from place to place. Anything you would add to that, Barb?
No, I think that's a good description. I think, we were given an orientation that first day that shown how to get around. Jen shared with us a City Walker app, different ways of getting around. But then when it came time to where we were going for lunch or where we were meeting for happy hour, she'd just send out a link that told us where it was, and it was up to all of us to get there. And there are many different ways to do that. And certainly, if we'd had any problem doing it, she would have helped. But everybody in our cohort was quite comfortable using Uber or Bolt or the subway or the buses or just even walking on foot. So
Yeah, great. Thank you. So we heard you mention Jen a bunch of times.
there
Um,
she is.
there she is. Every one of our programs has a community manager, and the community manager has a few different roles in the program. One is to organize the activities and events, as have heard about, but they're also there to help you make the most of your month there, right? And help so they actually get to know you a little bit and say, like, what do you want to, who are you, and what do you want to get out of this? And I know Jen knows me quite well, and she knows that I like jazz. And last time I was in Lisbon, she's like, "Oh, there's a jazz concert, by students at the university." And you might want to check it out. And I'm like, wow, this is what I love about our community managers. Like, I would never have found the jazz concert at the university if it weren't for Jen. And she just got, she knows that about me, and it's great. So they're connecting each other, the members of our community, to be a community, but also connecting you to the local community and to what's happening there, and also helping you kind of plan out maybe any trips or things that you want to do. And they're available using that WhatsApp messaging app, um, during business hours, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And you can text them and say, "Oh, I have a question," and they'll get back to you reasonably soon. They have lives, and Jen has kids and husband and things. So, yeah, but within a reasonable time, they get back to you and can kind of guide you to things. Barb, do you want to just talk about, what was the role of the community manager in your experience?
I think something that she did that was great is every Friday, for those of us that were going to be in town over the weekend, she would just send out different ideas. This is a really wonderful garden that you might like to visit, or this is going to be open. These are some markets that are being featured this weekend, that kind of thing. Not saying go here or do that, but just a bunch of ideas that those of us in the cohort could just take a look at and decide for ourselves if there was something that looked like might be of interest to us. And yeah, she was a great resource talking to her about. We went to Porto one weekend on our own, and just how do we go about getting train tickets and that sort of thing. She's kind of there as a resource for that too.
Great, great, yeah. And in all of our cities, I mean, you can see other community managers' photos. They're all great. They live in that city. They know it well, and they really have a spirit of hospitality, of welcoming you. And I really think that they're like your local friend. That's how I think of it. Yeah, I remember in Florence, one of the very first groups we had, our community managers, they work as guides, when they're not working with us. And they said, this is going to be interesting. Most of the people we work with, we're with them for a day and then they're gone. Um, and toward the end of the month, I said, what do you think? They go, these people are my friends. I miss them over the weekend. Like I really get to know them. And it's a completely different experience than if being a guide and just with someone for a day. And so it's yeah, I guess it's inevitable when you spend enough time with people who share a value like travel and cultural immersion to find yeah, make a connection. So I'll say this. There's important things to know. There's physical requirements, but there's also just other things to know because I don't think this is a program for everyone. In terms of physical requirements, this is sort of the basic, what we say, like, look, there's no age limit, but you should be able to walk for at least 2 miles on an uneven surface. It's Europe, people walk upstairs. Not every place has an elevator. Buildings are much older than they are in the United States on average. And I mean, Lisbon, I would even add more, huh, Barb? It's
Hills.
hills. It's a city, what do you call it? City of seven hills.
Yes, yeah.
So you really, it's like, and it's not just the hill, but I remember I was there and it was raining, and the paving stones, those little paving stones, are slippery.
Yeah,
I mean, so
they
you
are.
you gotta walk carefully. Um, but so there, I would say, really look at yourself honestly and say, can I do this? Because this isn't, like I said again, it's an independent experience. We're not picking you up in a tour bus and taking you places. You're on your own, getting to places that you need to go. As Barb said, oh, here's the happy hour. There's a click link. Maybe go to Google Maps and then go get there. And so I think physically, also, I might even add like technologically, like, if you really have trouble with technology, I mean, using WhatsApp does require some getting used to, and using Google Maps to navigate yourself around the city does take some getting used to. So these are important things to think about and just ask yourself if it's really a good fit for you. Uh, Barb, are there any other expectations or things that you would tell people?
No other than I think we touched on earlier. I think you just need to have a certain amount of independence that you have the confidence to find your way around, and to function independently, particularly on those days where there aren't any activities with the group. Um, to make your way to different places, to feel comfortable getting an Uber or a Bolt is the one they used mostly in Lisbon. That goes to technology too, to be able to add, comfortable adding money onto subway tokens, so your subway card, which got you everywhere, but you needed to add money every now and again. So you need to have um, the ability, the technological ability, but also the confidence to manage that kind of thing on your own.
Mhm. And one of the things I love about having alumni on these webinars is people can hear directly, firsthand experience. So, can you just tell people like maybe like highlight of the trip, like favorite thing about the trip, and then you know something you didn't like, or a challenge, or a problem, or something that you're like, this I was fine with this, but this is not for everyone. Like high and low.
I mean, highlights of the trip, I think, something I hadn't realized before we went, but that we found as we got there. When you go on vacation, you go for a week, you go for a couple weeks, you go to a city and you go, okay, I got to get to, you're in Paris and I've got to see the Champs-Élysées and I've got to see the Eiffel Tower. And when you're in a city for a month, you don't have that push to go check, 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 check every day. There are days where you might have a really busy day, fun wandering around, and you stumble into something new that you hadn't expected, and you're out all day and you come home exhausted. And the next day you may just decide to stay home and do some laundry and read a book. And you have that ability because you have a good long time. You don't have to just be kind of pursuing activities every day because you're limited in your time. And I think we really loved that about this experience. The negatives, I don't know. I'll tell you something I wish we had done. We tended to kind of back to places that we was had a little bit of a comfort zone. The Commerce Square is a main square down by the water, and we really loved it down there. But we tended to wander back down there a lot, and I wish that we had branched out a little bit more, particularly away from the more tourist areas and into the more residential areas. We kind of did our last week and thought, gosh, why didn't we do this sooner? Why didn't we get a little bit more used to the bus, going on the bus sooner? Because it was very easy to use. So that's something I regret that we had done. It was, but in terms of the program, I don't have any negatives. As I said, we're looking forward to going again in April. So
Yeah,
um,
you've already rebooked with us to
we have,
Rome, right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
What about language? Was the fact that it's a Portuguese speaking country, was that a barrier to you, or how did you manage that?
It was not a barrier because, as I said, English is widely spoken in Lisbon, and it certainly was in Porto also. What I found frustrating was if Portuguese words, you can see the letters and you know how we would pronounce them, but that's not how they pronounce them. And I wished I had known. In fact, maybe that's something I would ask for, is sort of a pronunciation guide for just the names of the metro stops. You don't know how to pronounce. It took a while for some of the older parts of the city. How they're spelled is not how they're pronounced. I'm blocking on it now. There's well, I can't think of what it is, but they're Belang. It's spelled Belem, but it's pronounced Belang. It's where the I think the president of Portugal lives. So not knowing how to properly pronounce a lot of the words because Portuguese, I think one of our guides said there are four different ways to pronounce the letter S, and I'm sure there's at least that.
Really good. Um, all right. So what is this? What does the program fee include? That's a common question. So it's 30-night program. It includes all the scheduled activities that are on that schedule we provide. Weekly cleaning of your apartment, the lunch, the happy hour, the meals, the drinks are all included in that. Your local community manager, insurance. It's $100,000 of medical and 500,000 for medical evacuation. It does not include your airfare there. It doesn't include airport transfers or groceries or any sort of optional tours. In Portugal, for example, there's an optional group tour if you wanted to go to Porto and to the Douro Wine Valley for a weekend. You can join or you can go on your own. I believe, Barb, you just went on your own, and other people in the group just did it independently, and other people went together. And we have these sort of optional tours in almost all of our cities. There's some kind of weekend getaway because some people just, hey, if you could plan it for me, go for it. And other people prefer to do it independently. So, um, and if you're ready, if you think this sounds great, ready to book, you can just go to our website, click that book now button. The exact price is based on the destinations. Some cities, London and Paris, much more expensive than other cities. The seasonality, we have high, low, and mid-season. The number of people, how big of an apartment, a studio versus a one bedroom versus a two bedroom. We don't have studios in all of our cities, and we don't have two bedrooms in all of our cities. So you have to kind of look and filter through the website to find the right configuration for you, and then it has the clear price per person, and you can find what's right for you there. Yeah, it takes $395 to hold your spot per person as a deposit, and then 30 days later you pay half, and then 100 days before the program you pay the other half. And if you cancel more than 120 days prior, your deposit can convert into a credit. We can move that to another date. We can move that to another city. It's all fine. And you can get everything refunded back to you. Less than 120 days, there's sort of a diminishing refund policy as you get closer to the program. That's all I have for the presentation part of it. Now we're going to go to Q&A. We have some questions that have come on here, and I'm going to go through and pick some out. So how large are the places we stay at? Are there photos of some sample places? Barb, I mean, without being an architect, do you have a rough guesstimate of how big your apartment was?
No, we had a good size living area with little small dining table with two chairs. We had a good sized kitchen, a large bedroom and a large bathroom. But I think apartments differ from city to city and from apartment building to apartment building too.
Yeah. I would say if you really wanted me to give you a number, I would say it ranges from 450 for a one bedroom apartment from 450 square feet to 550 square feet. And then for a two bedroom on average from like 600 square feet to 700 square feet. Again, in some cities, just the layout of the building there's bigger and some places maybe a little bit smaller, especially in some of the cities where we're staying in like medieval buildings that have been renovated and the layouts are just what they are. And there's photos, sample photos on our website for every city. If you can go to our website, you click locations, a list of all the cities, you click the city, and you scroll down that page and it says accommodations, and then there's some photos of that, and you can click and it actually opens up into a gallery, and you can see a bunch of different photos. And then once you book, of course, we provide based on the availability departments, and we say, okay, well, this is what's available. You'll get to see the actual photos of your specific apartment as we get closer to the date. Others have told us there's not enough to do in Lisbon for a month. It sounds like you disagree. Can you, people ask me this not just about Lisbon, but any city. They say, well, what am I going to do in Palermo for a month? And I say, well, Where are you from? They said, oh, I'm from Iowa City. I'm like, oh, what do you do in Iowa City for a month? This is a really important thing, I think, for me to mention. And now, Barb, I'd love to get your take on this, but being a tourist is one thing. And you can go and be a tourist and you can see the five things you need to see in Barcelona, in 5 days. It's a different thing to actually want to live abroad. And living abroad is about doing some of the things that you might do at home. For me, I like exercising. I go to the gym. So I think it's cool to go to a gym in another country. I think it's cool to go to the open air market and buy my food, my produce, and then come home and cook it. It's just a different experience and connecting with local people. And if you find rhythms and routines, you actually start to connect with local people. And I got to know people at the gym in Lisbon, for example. I went to this gym, and after a few days, like, oh, it's you again. You're like you're not just here like for 2 days or 3 days. Like, what are you? And then, connections. Oh, let's go out for coffee. Let's meet up for a beer. So I find that to be interesting. And then also, as you were mentioning, like just be able to slow down and to still see some of the touristy things, but at my own pace. Barb, what do you say to someone who said there's not enough to do to justify a month-long stay?
I think there's a lot to do, but I don't think it's always do, 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 do. I think I kind of alluded to that a little bit ago. It's nice to have a quiet time. It's nice to have, a half a day of we just get up late and go for a coffee and a pastry and kind of putter around the apartment, getting things organized, and then maybe go out to the park in the afternoon. Or so there are plenty of museums and sites. There are things that we ended up not doing that I wish we had done. But it's just not a go, 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 go experience. It's more, we would go to the grocery store every day, every other day, which we don't do at home. But that's, I think, more living like a European.
Yeah, I think I like that a lot because I've seen this a lot too. In the first week of a program, people are like in tourist mode. Like that's what we know how to do is be how to be a tourist. And they're going, going, going. They're eating big meals at the best restaurants every day, and then like going, packing the day. And I usually say to them at the end of the first week, you're gonna have to slow down. You're gonna burn out. It's just like you can't. I mean, even for me, like you can't eat that much all the time because when you're a tourist, you're like, well, when am I going to be back here? I got to try the best of everything. Well, no, you have a month, and so just slow down and then and really savor it. And it's more about finding the local rhythm of life and just getting into that rhythm, which I can guarantee you, whichever city you choose is going to be a slower rhythm than the rhythm of what you might have been used to living in the U.S. or Canada, especially if you were in the corporate world.
And sometimes you just stumble on things that you never would have thought to have gone or done. I think there was one weekend Jen had recommended a park, and we took a bus to the park and wandered around the park, and it was lovely. And then we saw this, it was a basilica across the street. It was a Sunday. And so I thought, oh, that looks kind of cool. Let's wander on over. Well, they're having mass, but we kind of went through the something called the lobby, the narthex, I think. And there was a little gift shop, and we went in, and apparently you could go up to the top of this basilica, and you could actually go into the dome that was on top of it, which really?
No, right?
And we thought, well, that sounds cool. And it was like €4, I think. And so this man kind of leads us to this door and he unlocks it and he says, don't touch the wires up top. They're electrified to keep the pigeons off. And we're like, all right. And so we go in and we do one of these circular things for 114 steps to get up to the top. And we're all alone on the top of this basilica roof, these gorgeous views. And there's this huge dome there and bell towers. One of them went off at 1 o'clock. I almost fell off the roof. And we thought, well, there was a doorway to the basilica, to the dome, but I guess we can't see that. And a few minutes later, this guy who took our €4 came and unlocked the door and walked away. And we went in and they were saying mass down below. And we're in this dome just looking down. But it wasn't a tourist attraction. It wasn't anything in the Rick Steves book. It wasn't anything that we anticipated. We just happened to go to this garden that Jen had said was kind of cool, this park, and wandered in across the street. So that's what I mean when I say there's tons to do, even if it's not kind of on a checklist. And you find it just in exploring.
It's a great story. Thanks, Barb.
Yeah.
Are there safes in the apartment? I don't know. Was there a safe in your apartment, Barb?
No.
No. Most of the times, no. These are just like apartments people would live in that don't necessarily have safes. In some cases, in a few cities they do, but I would set the expectation that no, there's not normally safes in there. If people have questions, I ask, can you please write it into the Q&A box. That's how where we're going to go through the questions. Bed size, queen beds. Yes, in most cities, there are always queen size beds. Euro queen, 150 centimeters. I think it's like maybe 1 or 2 centimeters smaller than a US queen, but roughly they're always queen beds. Was that your case, Barb?
Yeah.
Do apartments have air conditioning? Yes, correct for you too.
Yes.
Um, in almost all cases, they have air conditioning. The one place that's the exception is Paris. Paris, France is not very friendly for air conditioning. The buildings, I don't know, there's all sorts of laws and rules around that. We don't run programs in the summer in Paris, but Paris is one place, but almost every other place has air conditioning. Um, I'm interested. I'm a solo yet experienced traveler. Is this program suitable for a party of one? Um, can you speak to solo travelers in your group?
Yeah, we there were 20 people in our group, 8 couples and 4 solo travelers. All 4 were women in our case. I don't think that's typically the case, or at least not always the case. And they all became friends, but also got friendly with other couples too. We all yeah, every
Yeah,
one
in
of
my
them had a great
experience,
time.
I feel like because we promote this as a community, it's not like exclusive. Oh, the couples do this and the solos do this. It's very inclusive, and everyone is welcome. And what I've seen in many cities is really people just look out for each other too. Like, oh, we're walking back from dinner or drinks, and like, hey, well, let's walk with you. We'll walk with you to your apartment and see you off. And just, how you doing? Are everything okay? I mean, people. It really is I feel like it's a sense of community, and people care for each other. Um, I don't know if you agree with that, Bart, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Air conditioning, people ask. Uh, Trips recommended for people with mobility issues. I think we kind of touched on this. I think you've got to be mobile enough to be able to function independently. That's sort of the criteria. And knowing the layout and the topography of the city and knowing that these are many cases very old cities. Florence, the sidewalk sometimes just disappears and there's no sidewalk. In other places, it's cobblestone streets that are very uneven. Many places with old buildings that don't have elevators and there's stairs. So I think that's something that people should really ask themselves if they think they can do it and have a realistic perspective because we're not equipped to be able to take care of you in that sense. Is it possible to visit other nearby areas? Yeah, it's I'd say on average about 75% of the people in our programs go away for a weekend or for, to a neighboring town. In some, it's Europe, so sometimes people go to a neighboring country. I know from, it's like from France to, other countries, it's not very far. Barb, you went to Porto, and did you go anywhere else for the weekends?
We did not, but we had other people in our cohort that went to the Algarve, that went to several other towns that were nearby. We did day trips, but not overnight, other than Porto.
Okay. Most popular city for this program. Our most popular program is Florence, Italy. It's a lovely city and it's mostly sold out for 2026 already. Is attendance at activities mandatory? No, absolutely not. You can come and go as you want. Some people come to everything, some people come to some things. Um, is a solo traveler, is there a single supplement or apartment rates based on double occupancy? The apartment is just the cost of the apartment. Um, so how we think about it in terms of our pricing is there's an apartment, if, um, and then there's like there's activities that cost per person, right? So it's we haven't found an apartment that charges less if there's one person. So if there's 2 people in the apartment, that basically the apartment cost is split between two. If there's 4 people, it's split between four. And we do have many friends or couples who say, "Hey, we'll split a 2 bedroom apartment. Is there 2 bathrooms?" And most cases, in many cases, yes. And then it's a way to bring down the cost because the apartment is just the apartment cost. And so the more people that are in there, the less that it costs. But there's no single supplement because it's not like a hotel room where like we charge you, or I guess a tour company would do something like that. Is there a better city for first timers? I'd say, I don't know, what do you think about Lisbon? I think if you're physically really able to walk up hills and walk around, Lisbon's pretty good, don't you think, Barb? For a first timer, I think.
Yeah, I do. As long as your mobility is good, it's a great city to get around. As you said, it's not a large city, but it's also not a very small one. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I
and
think
very safe also, I would
and
say.
very safe. I would add to that as well. I think Florence is also a easy one because it's a very small city. Uh, what else I'd say? Oh, Valencia, Spain. I think it's a great one. Again, it's a small city, very manageable. Doesn't feel overwhelming. Now that said, I will say I've been with our groups in Paris and in London and Barcelona, and while it seems like, oh, this is a very big city and it could be overwhelming, because you have the community manager and you go through the orientation, you sort of you learn, how it works. You learn, like, what how to navigate. And after like the first week, first 10 days, it starts to feel very manageable. And it's like, oh, but there's so much to explore because they're really big cities. So I don't know if you're from a big city, it would also feel less intimidating as well. I'm not sure. But yeah, Lisbon, Valencia, these sort of medium-sized cities, I think are really great for first timers. What happens if you don't get a minimum number of people that month? So we do ask that when you book, you don't buy your plane ticket immediately. And we will confirm with you 6 months in advance that the program is going to run. So 6 months, you have plenty of time to buy plane tickets. That said, that's usually not a problem. We have, like I mentioned with Florence, 2026 is pretty much sold out already for the whole year. Um, People book this 9, 10 months in advance. So we have really good visibility into, like, the only months that tend to be a little dicier, we're not sure, is like we have sometimes programs that go over Christmas, and then we're not sure, or we have it in January. Sometimes people aren't quite ready to be out traveling again. And then so and occasionally in the middle of the year, there's some things, but we can tell you with pretty good certainty well in advance if the trip is going to. That doesn't tend to be a big problem with us. Deposits part of the total price? Yes, that deposit is applied to your total program fee. Can you pay the fees on credit cards, parentheses, Amex, without any additional fees? Well, let's talk about money a little bit. So what I would say, if your credit card charges you a fee while you're traveling, you're using the wrong credit card. There are many credit cards that specifically have no international fees. So that's a more question around your credit card. When I travel, for example, the airline credit cards are kind of tailored to travelers. They don't charge any international fees. Um, some people might be asking also, like, do I bring cash? Do I change money? Barb, how did you pay for things in Lisbon?
Apple Pay mostly, or
Apple
credit
Pay.
card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is the most common thing, and many countries and many places are going cashless completely. And now I still carry, like, 10, 20 euros with me when I'm going around, just, maybe coins to tip something. But really Apple Pay and your credit card, and if you have a card that does not charge international fees, then you're good to go. And you'll get a better rate from doing that than if you took dollars and walked to a foreign exchange counter and changed it. That'll give you a worse rate. It's just better to use your credit card. You ensure that solo travelers are not put into a group with all couples. No, we can't ensure that what date people book. And so the group sort of happens. But I would say that solo travelers and couples, there's not like an exclusivity thing. I have a friend right now who's actually in Lisbon. She's solo traveling. It's all couples. She's texting me like, "This is amazing. I've made these new friends." It's very very inclusive, I would say. Why don't you offer programs over the summer? We have some cities that have summer programs, some don't, but we've done it in the past, and very few people want to go because it's at its hottest and it's also at the most crowded in terms of tourists. So it's kind of the inverse. When people think of like high season for tourism, that's when our people don't want to go. And our people all want to go in the shoulder season because we're retired for the most part, and we have some flexibility with when we travel. And so our high season is actually March, April, May, and like September and October, and July and August. most of our people just don't want to be in the crowded, hot European cities. Now, some places that are not quite as hot, like in Prague, which is a little bit northern European, we do offer programs in the summer. As for clothing, did you travel light? I like to travel casually, but does one need to take dressier outfits? Barb, you want to speak to clothing?
Certainly not on our trip, not in Lisbon. It's very casual. And because you have a washing machine, you can travel light. You just don't need to bring too much in the way of clothes.
Yeah, I think what I tell people is travel light. I know like, people go to Paris and they want to like really do it up. That's great, but also what's fun for me is to buy clothes in that country. And you'll often like get stuff that maybe is a little more reflective of the local fashion. So when I go to Paris, I always like to buy one piece at least. I feel very, very European. It's great. And like she said, you have a washing machine, you can do laundry. There's no need to pack, for a whole month worth of clothes. You can just kind of wash. Can you see the weekend tour locations and prices before you book the apartment? Yes, just contact our office and say I'm interested in doing this if it's you want to go on the organized tour. But of course, as like Barb did, you don't have to go with our the organized group tour. You can just book any tour on your own. There's no obligation. What phone service do you recommend? Personally, I like T-Mobile because I could travel anywhere and my phone just works and there's no extra charges. Um, Barb, what did you do with communication?
Verizon, our regular Verizon, just get an international plan for the month.
Yep, a lot of carriers will say, "Oh, you just pay a little fee, and suddenly your phone is like international." And then other people who don't have that, we do have a partnership with a company that sells something called an eSIM, which is in this case, you just download this app. Yeah, I think it's 20, $30. I'm not exactly sure, but basically you get data and cellular data and connectivity to your phone, unlimited for it's something like 30, $40. I don't remember exactly in any European country for a month straight. So these eSIMs are also good. I will say one thing, it is important that your phone has connectivity while you're there because that's how you get the Google Map. That's how you get the WhatsApp. I mean, yes, there's Wi-Fi in your apartment, but when you're out in the streets, there's no Wi-Fi. That's cellular connectivity, and it's very important to have that in order to be able to get around. Freezers, yep, refrigerators and freezers are in the kitchens. Are most apartments on the ground floor? Nope. Very few apartments are on the ground floor. But the in most cities, if you're not on the ground floor, that building will have an elevator. Barb, does your building have an elevator?
Our apartment was on the first floor. However, our building did have an elevator. There were, I think, our two buildings connected. I think there were five of the couples were in those buildings, and we were the only ones on the ground floor. But I would also say, when you talk about mobility earlier, even though we were on the ground floor, we still had, I think, 6 or 7 marble steps to go up to get to the first floor, which in Europe is actually ground level 2, I think.
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
yeah,
It's
it gets really
ground, then
confusing.
one, then two.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, no, some cities, especially the old medieval ones, the buildings do not have elevators, but we don't go into big high rises. We're just in like 2 or 3 story buildings. Drying racks, yes, they have drying racks. You're going to Valencia, you'll have drying racks. Do apartments have outdoor space or balcony? It depends greatly on the apartment. But in general, no, they don't all have balconies. Do bathrooms always have showers? Yes, they always have showers. They don't very often have bathtubs. I'll give you that as a expectation setting. Not no bathtub, but showers, yes. And for the most part, they're actually like nice walk-in showers. Maybe you've been in a hotel and had the experience like in Europe where it's like this tiny little thing and you can't turn around. I mean, when we say these are vetted apartments, we have certain standards we look for, and one of them is to have like a proper walk-in shower, to have enough space where you can, not be on the toilet and hit your head on the sink and turn and hit the shower. I've had that experience in hotels and it's not fun. I mean, it's fine for a couple days, but if you're going to be somewhere for a month, you want to be a little bit more comfortable. Uh, Optional tours, some or all have fees. Yeah, optional tour is completely what it sounds like. It's a tour that you can buy and is an option and go do it separately. How do you get the keys to the apartment? It varies. How did you get your keys? Was there a box or?
Well, Jen met us at our apartment when we arrived, and I think she pretty much did that with everyone. But there's a lockbox. Well, first of all, the building has a code, which they had emailed us ahead of time so we could get in the front door. And then when we got to apartment, there was a lockbox, which they had also emailed us a code for, and the keys were inside the lockbox.
Yeah.
But Jen met us there and showed us around. So
In most cases, if you're arriving sort of in like during business hours, there'll be someone there to meet you. In many cases, if you arrive at like 6 in the morning or 11 at night, we can't have our staff, just always on 24 hours. So there's usually a lockbox or some kind of code you would go to and get your key, and then be able to access your apartment. Are basic supplies available upon arrival? Yeah, that's a good question. So upon arrival, we provide enough to get you started. So toilet paper, maybe a roll of toilet paper towel, a bar of soap, a sponge, um, and maybe some coffee pods. But we don't, it's not a hotel. I think this is an important thing to note. It's not a hotel where we just replenish your soaps and your coffee pods. We get you started, and then you're on your own to kind of refill your consumables on your own. Um, I'm assuming that was the case for you, Barb, as well.
yeah, we had a welcome box that had like I think one thing of dishwasher detergent and actually we had some dish soap and then that sort of thing. But yeah, everything we had to replenish once we used
And
it.
I think that's important to, from expectation setting. Like sometimes people are like, oh, can I have like an extra towel? Like this is your apartment, right? We provide what's provided, but then you can go to the store. If I want more hanger. Okay, buy a hanger. I mean, they're like $1, right? Like it's not a big deal. The idea is that you are living on your own. You're not in a hotel. So I think that's actually maybe something I would add. If you want hotel level service, this is not the program for you. You're not in a hotel. Not a hotel. Very important to notice. Price does differ depending on the time of year. When price is seasonality, are the seasons in each place different? We don't want to go in cold weather or heat of summer. Um, yeah, you just have to look at the months. It lists each month and then like high, medium, or low season. Um, and so, and it varies because we have a lot of programs that start in January, and people are like, oh, January, yeah, but it's in Southern Europe and the Mediterranean. It's actually quite sunny. It's not hot, but it's nice. It's warm. It's a lot warmer than anyone who lives in the northern part of the United States in January. So we have to look specifically at in our website the month by month. It'll say exactly which season it falls into. I can walk 2 miles, but speed might be an issue. Same with stairs. What happens if I can't keep up? Again, you know, we do a couple of walking tours, and yeah, maybe the group could slow down a bit, but you're gonna be independent. So I think it's more about like, can you independently be moving in a city that may have some stairs and old buildings. So I think this is a thing where you should talk to our office and explain your specific situation. 'Cause some cities are a little bit more friendly than others. For example, Barcelona, the subways all have elevators to go down to the subway, whereas other cities, they do not. And so these are like details maybe to think about if stairs are really a big issue for you. Um, all right, we're running out of time, and there's still a lot more questions here. So I'm going to do a couple rapid fire, and then, but if I don't get to your question, please send an email to our office, info@thegoodlifeabroad.com, info at thegoodlifeabroad.com, and we can get to any of your questions. Um, all right. Okay. I'm just going to go medical insurance premiums. There's no premiums for the travel medical insurance. If you want to upgrade it to have cancel for any reason insurance, that's a separate fee. But the travel medical, there's no premiums. It's just included in your program fee. Is there a program in Athens? No, not yet. It's on the radar. Sometime in the future, we'll have a program in Athens. Balcony Terrace? No, no balcony terrace. I'm going to Florence in October. Do I need to get tickets in advance? Not sure which tickets you're referring to. Um, but no, you don't need to get tickets for any sort of attractions in advance. A month in advance, you'll do a call with the community manager. You can ask them if there's some specific things you want to do, what their recommendations are. But in October, the museums are not sold out like they are in like June, July, and August. Our apartments smoke free? Yes. Age range of the traveler, we kind of talked about that. Apartments have a cooktop or hot plate or only microwave? No, they have In the smallest kitchens, it's a two burner induction stove plus a microwave in almost every case. I think in your case, Barb, it's probably four burners,
Mm. Yeah.
electric. Um, is it, do you ever let people not go to a certain area due to turmoil, or all areas pretty reliable? Um, there's no real turmoil or unrest. I mean, um, in many European cities, there are like protests in like a plaza. That's a very common thing. I mean, we have it in San Diego as well, but it's very common. But it's sort of like a contained like protest. I know, like in Barcelona, it's one week it's protesting the electric prices, and the next week it's the water, and the next week, like it's just like a thing. But it's not like unrest. I mean, you can look in the U.S. and probably say there might be more unrest. Um, Elevators, yes. Solo person, how much they would spend on food and daily living expenses? I'm not asking sooner. Okay, so people are asking about spending money. So spending money, I would say, okay, if you separate out like going on tours, buying, if you wanted to buy a guided tour of a cathedral or something, and you take out fancy restaurants, and some people want to go to Michelin star restaurants. This is why it's hard to answer this question. Everyone has a different budget and what they do when they travel. But if you just strip it all away and say like, okay, I'm there for a month, I need to buy groceries. I will probably want to go out for like a simple lunch here and there, maybe a dinner, entrance fees, just to go into like the €4 to go into the chapel like you did. I'd say $1,000. And then you just add on based on how much you like to go out to eat and how much you like to buy, guided tours and how much you want to do other things. But if you're just going to the market and grocery store, it's like I would say 1,000. I don't know, Barb, if you disagree, that's I'd love to hear your opinion.
As I said, we didn't cook, so our money was spent more in restaurants.
Yeah,
And we found Lisbon to be really reasonable. Bottled water is really cheap. Wine is really cheap. It's very economical to drink unless you're drinking sodas, but it depends on what you buy at the grocery store too.
yeah, yeah. It's a tough question. I think that you just hit on something that's really important though. When you go to any one of these European cities where we have programs and you go on maybe as a tourist for like a few days, you're probably going to be in like more of the touristy area and you're probably going to go to restaurants in that area. And those are going to be a lot more expensive than when you were there for a month. You start to learn where like the local neighborhood places are. Like, oh, that place that actually has like a prefix thing for €15, and I can go eat there. So what I'm trying to get at is when you're there for a month, you learn the local spots. You're eating at the local spots, and that just naturally saves you money than if you were there for 3 days, staying in a hotel in the tourist center. I think that's an important point. At what point do we know where we'll be staying in any country? In more than half of the cities where we operate, or about half, everyone is staying in one of either the same building or one of like three buildings, all in the exact same neighborhood. So we can tell you like exactly where that is. Um, and if not, we'll tell you like the neighborhood. Like in Paris, we're like in this area between the second and third arrondissement, and so we can tell you exactly where you're going to be staying. It's not a mystery. London feels like a good jumping off point for other European cities. True. Yeah, London is great. It's really, if you want to do a weekend in Paris, it's just a quick train ride away. Sardinia, can you walk to the beach? You can. It's about a 30-minute walk. It's just outside of it's still in the city, but it's a 7-minute bus ride. I just take the city. Um, Husband, bad back, needs separate bed, no twin beds. Yes, a lot of people will get two-bedroom apartments for if they want to sleep in separate beds because they're typically just one queen size bed. Credit card question, fees for your room. There's no fees to your credit cards. Just pay with the credit card. I was in Amsterdam. They don't take money, only credit cards. Yep. What is your website? Our website is www.thegoodlifeabroad.com. Do two-bedroom apartments have two bathrooms? Not all of them. That's not what we guarantee. Two-bedroom apartments have two bedrooms. If you specifically want two bathrooms, that is something we need to discuss because that is not the case in all the cities. Um, can you schedule a car service to pick you up at the airport? Sure, or you could just use Uber and it picks you up at the airport or the taxi and you just give them the address. But there are services that can do transfers. Does your company own the apartments? Do you have control, full control. No, unfortunately, we do not own the apartments. We work with property management firms, so we don't have total control. When something goes awry, if there's some kind of maintenance request or service request, um, the property management company will show you how to contact them if there's something needs to be done. And for the most part, they'll come and they'll fix it within a day or two. Um, and then if there's some problem where it's just not getting resolved, we can try to put some pressure on them because obviously we're a big customer if we're taking out, a number of apartments in the city. But we don't control the apartments ourselves. It's really the property management company that manages the apartments. Sorry, we're not going to get to all the questions. I can't even see them all because there's so many. So again, if you have a question, please email us at info@thegoodlifeabroad.com. Um, Barb, thank you. I know it's been more than an hour. I appreciate your time, and it's been a real pleasure having you on.
You're very welcome.
So thank you again, and can't wait to see you again somewhere in Europe.
All right. Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.